Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 15th of March of 2024. Today we have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. First we're going to talk about the speech of Vladimir Putin, about his statement about the events at the border. Putin told us that the Kyiv neo-Nazi regime planned a number of criminal actions during the elections. A number of terrorist attacks were carried out with the aim of entering and consolidating on Russian territory. More than 2,500 militants and 35 tanks took part in the breakthrough attempts. The Ukrainian had no success in any direction and fled with heavy losses. By committing provocations, the Ukrainians is trying to divert attention from the real state of affairs on the line of contact. Russian air defense repels up to 95 of Kyiv's attacks. Ukrainian strikes will not go unpunished. This is his statement, and obviously the most important part, as I understand, is that Ukrainian strikes will not go unpunished, and this is exactly what I was saying a few days ago, that currently Putin doesn't have any other option but to start the buffer of offensive operation and to force the Ukrainians to fall back as far as possible, as deep as possible towards Kharkiv and even maybe further. We'll see whether the Russians are able to do this or not. Maybe the Russians are not ready for this operation, because to take Kharkiv with the population of more than 1 million, obviously the Russians need something like 200,000-300,000 soldiers, but maybe the Russians have already concentrated this army, we just don't know about this. Now let's return back to the borderlands, because we have additional reports. Once again, the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation this morning provided us the final report of the clashes on the border, and according to them, the Ukrainians lost up to 1,500 soldiers and around 18 tanks and 23 armored vehicles. So we can say that Ukrainians used 2,500 and lost 1,500. So let's say the Ukrainians lost 60% of the personnel that were involved in the operation. Of course, significant losses. The Ukrainians haven't managed to achieve anything. During the day, the Ukrainians were bombing the territory heavily. The Russians were bombing as a response. Furthermore, the Ukrainians, when they realized that they don't have any chances to establish control over even a single basement or single building on the Russian territory, decided to fall back, and they start bombing and attacking the Belgorod, the capital of the region, with multi-launch rocket systems, with Vampire systems, with the Western weapon, with the with former Soviet weapon. So they wasn't afraid of anything. The Russians reported that there were around up to 4 waves of attacks on the civilian city in Belgorod. All of those attacks were repelled by the Russians, but as Putin told us, 95% the Russians repelled, but 5% probably managed to get the target. We have some casualties, probably some damage and so on, but nothing huge, nothing like something that can change and to break the situation in the area. So once again, the Ukrainians, as you can see, today is 15th of March, and we see when talking about the current date, no attempt from the Ukrainian side to attack the Russian territory. Obviously, they were completely defeated. Very likely, the Ukrainians decided to regroup. Maybe they're bringing more fresh forces, some ammo. Maybe during the previous phase, they managed to discover the Russian positions, those positions that were revealed by the Russians during the counter-artillery duels or something like this. Maybe they're making some plan. Furthermore, don't forget that yesterday the Ukrainians announced about some kind of ceasefire. They announced that they're going to be ceasefire, and they're giving people, civilians, some corridor for evacuation, and after the end of the ceasefire, the Ukrainians will start bombing the territory, the borderlands once again. So we'll see what is going to be next. Maybe tomorrow there's going to be some intensive increase of activity, and very likely the most difficult day is going to be Sunday, the final day of the Russian president elections. But this is the situation on the ground. But when talking about Kyiv and Zelensky and the things that happens in the from his side, according to information we have, that Budanov, the head of intelligence, reported to Zelensky about betrayal instead of the stake at which the intelligence, the plan of main intelligence service to attack on Russian territory before the presidential election were announced. All roads of movement of Ukrainian forces were known to Russian special services, which is why the Ukrainians have large losses in equipment and personnel. So those were the words of Budanov, because that operation was completely under his responsibility. But if you ask my opinion about the betrayal or something like this, to understand the situation on the borderlines, of course, first of all, it's better to increase the numbers of updates at least from the 1st of January. If we increase the numbers of updates from the 1st of January, we will see the entire picture on the territory. And if you ask my opinion, I don't see any betrayal from in Ukrainian, let's say, among the Ukrainian officers, because this is the picture from the 1st of January. And we see this concentration of Russian fire. During the previous 3 months, the Russians bombed and destroyed and attacked probably every single square meter in the area. Very likely the Russians did have some information about possible Ukrainian further plans to start some landing operation, to start the border operation. Probably the Russians knew it, but obviously the Russians did know for sure where exactly the Ukrainians are planning to attack, because when talking about the Russian concentration of fire, exactly Volchansk and Volchansk region, this part, let's say the western part of the Kharkiv area, the northern Kupiansk direction, is the area of the main Russian concentration. So if you ask my opinion, according to the, let's say, Russian aviation and rocket activity and drone activity, I can say that the Russians supposed and the Russians thought that the Ukrainians would attack from Vovchansk, probably in direction of Novaya Tavlazhanka and Voznesenovka. And to tell the truth, this operation has more, let's say, benefits in comparison with the previous one, because there is a railways that can be cut off in this area, and and the logistic can be ruined as well. There is a water reservoir, let's say, from Belgorod to the south, which is very good positions to establish defense belt, and because it would be very difficult for the Russians to counterattack. So I suppose that the Russians expected the Ukrainians here, but for some reason the Ukrainians started their offensive operation on the western flank, and they were completely defeated. So once again, when talking about betrayal, I don't see any betrayal. The thing I see is that it's the results, the thing that we can see right now in the Graivaron area is the results of Russian professional work. They attacked and bombed every single square meter in the area, and that led at the end to significant results for the Russian army. Now we're moving to northern Kupiansk direction. Before northern Kupiansk direction, today we got very interesting video from another, let's say, borderlands from another part of Ukraine, from the northern borderlands between Chernigov and Bryansk area. On this video, for example, we can see the Russians discovered another concentration of Ukrainian forces, lots of armored vehicles, light vehicles, probably they brought some missiles, we have some radar system, maybe this is another air defense base, and the Russians discovered and destroyed the air defense base and the warehouses with Tornado S missiles, with aviation bombs, with cluster aviation bombs. So another Ukrainian base was destroyed on the borderlands. But when talking about this area, mainly the Russians were focused and had some interest to destroy and suppress air defense, because this area the Russians used for attacks on Kyiv with missiles. So the destroy of radar and air defense system in Chernigov area confirms probably the Russian further plans to renew missile attacks all over the entire Ukraine. Now we're moving to Kupiansk direction. When talking about the northern Kupiansk, we don't have anything interesting. The only important update we got is that the Russians managed to discover and to destroy another bridge above Oskol River. The bridge was destroyed as a result of strike, which obviously will reduce the Ukrainian logistic possibilities. When talking about the southern Kupiansk direction, we haven't received almost anything, just a small update regarding the further Russian progress to the western direction of Terny, and according to information we have, as a result of offensive operation, the Russians managed to establish control over additional tree lines, over additional, let's say, footholds, forests in this area, and this approximately the current Russian progress and control on the bridgehead. And if we calculate the distance between the Russian positions and, let's say, the farms that are located on the eastern outskirts of Terny, the distance is less than 1 kilometer. So basically this is the distance of short rifle fire or even of a tank fire. Now we are moving to Siversk direction. We have another day of a significant number of artillery and aviation strikes. Siversk is under very heavy fire for the previous few days. Let's say we discussed this direction a lot during the previous 2 weeks in March, and very likely due to this activity we can make a conclusion that very likely that Siversk is going to be the next target of the Russians. For example, on this video we see the suppression of Ukrainian artillery forces. Furthermore, behind Siversk, the Russians managed to destroy another S-300 system. This report was, let's say, we received today during the day, but we still haven't received geolocated video confirmations, just a small photo of destroyed S-300. And the Russians continue bombing and attacking the towns like Razdolovka and Fyodorovka. Another day with another FAB 500 or FAB 1500 and Totfem tower systems. And this is not the first video from these villages. We start discussing this the Russian activity in this area probably a week ago, and now we can be 400% sure that something big or something big is going to happen. To understand the entire picture of Siversk direction, of course, it's better to increase the numbers of days since the beginning of March, and now we can see the entire picture. A lots of strikes on, let's say, on the edge positions, lots of very big activity along the railways, Fyodorovka, Razdolovka activity, we have Bilogorovka activity, and we have artillery suppression in the vicinity of Siversk. A lots of artillery forces, systems and warehouses were destroyed. So this is the clearing operation before further biggest ground offensive operation. So we'll see, and obviously the days until the operation is going to start are numbered. Ivanovska, we have already discussed reports about the area in the previous update. According to some, let's say, pro-Ukrainian mappers, the Russians managed to break through completely the southern part of the village and to establish complete control and to get Seversk Donetsk-Donbass canal. For now, we don't have 100% sure confirmation of such a significant progress, but obviously this is very interesting information. From the other side, we continue receiving updates of how the Russians were bombing the farms on the southern part of Ivanovska and the tree lines to the south of the farms, which confirms that the Russians just reached probably, let's say, this line of the area, so somewhere here, not further. Furthermore, the Russians continue bombing Chasiv Yar. We continue receiving updates and videos with FAB strikes, with FAB 1500. For now, no clashes, no progress on the ground, no progress in Bogdanovka, no progress along the railways. So as I understand, the Russians attacked Bogdanovka and the railways just with one purpose, to, let's say, attack Popovo forest and to establish control over the forest, which will allow the Russians to concentrate their further fire and attack towards Chasiv Yar, towards Ivanovska from the north. So the Russians basically are not planning to do anything in Bogdanovka and Chasiv Yar, probably during the next, until they finish with Ivanovska, I think so. Now we are moving further to Avdiivka, Donetsk direction. We have additional updates from the territory. If you remember, yesterday the Russians managed to establish control over these intersections of the roads. The Ukrainians during the day made lots of attempts trying to counterattack the Russians. The Ukrainians were using the Bradley's counterattacks with one Bradley, but most of those attacks haven't, let's say, brought the Ukrainians any results. The Russians still control the territory. Furthermore, the Russians understand and realize the difficult situation in the area, and they understand that it is like a heroic action from the soldiers of the Russian army to hold this intersection. So that's why the Russian artillery, the Russian FPV drones, Lancets are mainly concentrated in this area, trying to support the Russian Marines and trying to secure them as much as possible. On this video we can see another Krasnopol hit. As a result of the hit, the Ukrainians lost another position of armored vehicle. During the day, the Russians made lots of attempts to, let's say, redeploy additional reserves to the west in direction of Berdichi. They were using infantry, armored vehicles. The Russians were moving this way. Furthermore, the Russians made few attempts to attack the Ukrainian positions here, but this attack was very likely repelled by the Ukrainians. On this video we can see the, let's say, the process of attack. The Russian armored personnel carrier was heading towards the Ukrainian position, but was damaged and destroyed probably by FPV drone. Another groups of Russians were moving to Berdichi. For now, no changes on the ground, but very likely soon we're going to receive some. No changes on Orlovka, no changes in Toninka, just the clashes and just the meat grinder. Some additional updates we got in Pervomaiska. The Russians established control over additional buildings and, let's say, houses inside of the village. Continue moving further to the central part and to the northwestern part. Krasnogorovka, no updates during the previous 24 hours, as well as from Novomikhailivka. No updates, just the archive video of Russian attack towards the southwestern part of the village. Another episode from this area which confirms the Russian progress. Probably this is 1 or 2 weeks old video. We discussed the Russian attacks in this area a few weeks ago, and now we received additional confirmation of Russian progress. Also, no updates from the ground. Very interesting details and updates are coming from Gulyai-Polye area. Today we have another video on how the Russians were bombing Gulyai-Polye with FAP 1500 or FAP 500, and this is not, of course, the most important video. The most important is when we increase the numbers of updates, at least, let's say, since the beginning of March. And if we increase the updates since the beginning of March, we see a certain Russian activity on the western flank in the vicinity of Dorozhnyanka, on the eastern flank in the vicinity of Malinovka, and in Gulyai-Polye itself, and in the vicinity of the village by the name of Chervone. So during these just 2 weeks, the Russians tried to suppress and destroy Ukrainian forces along the railways. They made lots of bombings with different types of weapon, trying to clear the area before possible further offensive operation from Dorozhnyanka to the railways. If the Russians are able to capture railways, then it will give them ease their further movements to Zaliznychne. Furthermore, during the previous weeks, since the beginning of March, we got a lot of updates about the Russian further progress from Stepanovka toward Chervona and from Stepanovka towards Malinovka, and the Russians improved their positions, and this information was confirmed, and there was like lots of attacks with armored vehicles, a lot of geolocations confirming Russian attacks and so on, and some updates from different mappers. Also, the Russians were bombing Malinovka with significant number of Mur missiles. Lots of Ukrainian positions were destroyed, so Malinovka is almost reduced to ruins, and we have a lot of FAP strikes on the Ukrainian deep rear, and warehouses, ammo depots were destroyed. So all this activity confirms further Russian plans in the area, and very likely during the next few months the Russians will start offensive on this direction, or at least they will make some probes trying to understand whether the Ukrainians are able to do anything, or basically they will collapse just as a result of one touch. And when talking about Verbovo, we haven't Robotyne area, we haven't received anything, no updates from the Robotyne itself. Some Russian attacks from Verbovo towards the fields, additional progress, some improvements on the ground, nothing important, just operational, let's say, updates without any, let's say, game-changing progress. Interesting details are coming from Krynky. After everybody forgot about Krynky at all, we start to receive more updates. For example, in this video we can see the Ukrainian soldiers inside of the Krynky filming the destroyed Russian tank, let's say, on somewhere on the horizon. So this is a fire of destroyed Russian tank, and this video confirms the presence of the Ukrainians in the village. For now, I can't tell for sure when exactly the video was made, but according to the author, the events on the video took place on the 12th or 13th of March, so 2-3 days ago. Interesting details we start receiving from the islands between along the Dnieper River. The Russians managed to improve and restore their positions to the north of Kazachий Laher, and currently they control something like this. The main reason of this progress is that currently it's spring and the Dnieper is fully filled with water, so that's why most of the islands were sank under the level of the water. So that's why the Ukrainians currently don't have possibilities to hold the footholds among the islands. So that's why they were forced to abandon their positions, at least temporary. And now we're moving to Odessa. During the day we got interesting updates from the town. The Russians made lots of attacks and they made lots of strikes. The Ukrainian sources start publishing videos of destroyed buildings in the area and publishing updates about casualties among civilians. Lots of civilians, according to the Ukrainians, died and something like this. And the Russians publish details about the strikes from their side, and the Russians are saying that there was a meeting among highly ranked officers, and that meeting was destroyed, and as a result of attack few highly ranked officers were killed as well. So there were like commanders and the officers of different brigades and so on, which is very important, of course, for the Russians. And now we are moving further to the Western countries, and United States of America today reported, the Pentagon to be more precise, announced that that it had handed over the latest package of military aid to Ukraine. No longer. So that was the final one. And we continue receiving updates from Macron, who is continuing telling that we will never lead an offensive on military action inside of Ukraine. We will never take the initiative for it. And from the other side, the Macron says that if Russia wins, Europe authority will be reduced to zero. So as I understand, Macron from himself doesn't know for sure whether he's going to send forces or not. So he's making a decision, but very likely he will answer, or at least he will deploy his forces in Romania or in Moldova, like the forces of fast reaction. In case if everything goes completely wrong for Ukraine, he will occupy Odessa with the purpose to hold the town as long as possible. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.